right, friends, welcome back. We are going to continue with chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra, The Lifetime of the Tathagata, a real meaty one. First, Damoku Sancho. Myoho Renge Kyo Myoho Renge Kyo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. As always, really appreciate you guys. We left off with the following statement. Thus, since I became Buddha, a very long time has passed, a lifetime of innumerable countless eons of constantly living here and never entering extinction. Good sons, from the beginning I have practiced the Bodhisattva way, and that life is not yet finished, but will be twice as long as what has already passed. So who's saying this? See, there's this duality that keeps flipping around here between Buddha, the person talking to us, and Buddha, the life state, the mindset, the experience. Sounds like I'm promoting a Broadway play. Buddha, the experience. But seriously, it's like, okay, Bob awakens to the reality of gravity back in the 14th century or whatever, and he starts telling people about gravity, and he demonstrates gravity, and people start saying, wow, you're gravity. Well, I'm Bob, but I'm telling you about gravity. No, you're gravity. You're amazing. We have never seen this before. We don't understand. Show us how this works. Well, here's how gravity works. Here's how you put it in your life. This is how you figure out gravity. This is how you observe it. This is what gravity looks like. And then one day Bob says, look, I am not gravity. All right, I am teaching you gravity, and I'm teaching you how to observe gravity. And they're all, yes, gravity, thanks so much, gravity. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to die pretty soon. And everyone goes, well, yeah, I'm just a guy, okay? I'm going to die. I'm going to leave here. What are we going to do without gravity? No. You guys don't get it. I'm teaching you about gravity, but gravity has always been here. It always will be here. Gravity is something you experience. It's not me. But what will we do after you're gone? Will we just float into space? Okay. Now, some of the people in the audience go, I get it. I'm getting away from all these dummies. I'm going to go create a monastery, and all the people who get it the way I do are going to go study gravity. And then some of those people leave that monastery, start their own monastery, and say, no, it's not about gravity. It's how you use it. We're going to show you how to use gravity. And then finally, the Lotus of Gravity comes out. And before he dies, Bob reminds everyone that, look, the gravity students and the appliers of gravity people, they still don't get it. You have to live your life knowing that gravity is always here. And that if you respect gravity, you'll have a better chance of being unharmed, and you'll be able to find uses for it, ways of avoiding its downfalls and using it for its benefits only, and showing others how to use it. And that way, everyone will know gravity. So Buddha is kind of like that. It's gravity. It's a state of experience that every phenomena has, not just humans. It's just integral to all thingness. It's immersion from potential differentiated is the samsaric appearance of it. That's why this life is Buddha, but it's obfuscated by conditions, samsaric conditions. But with these conditions, we can locate it. It's ironic, isn't it? So that's the tremendous opportunity of this lifetime, quote unquote. And this is why he goes on to say, even now, though I will not actually enter extinction. Notice he doesn't say die. He says I, as your concept of Buddha, gravity, will not actually enter extinction. In other words, Buddha won't go away. I announce that I will adopt the way of extinction. I will let people think that I will be extinct in body, but not in actuality, by using such skillful means. The Tathagata teaches and transforms living beings. Now, one of the epithets of Buddha is parent. So he's behaving here as a parent. He's taking his ignorant children and he's taking them a certain way to get them to perceive a truth that they don't yet understand. Why is this? He explains. If the Buddha lives for a long time in this world, people of little virtue will not plant roots of goodness. And those who are poor and of humble origins will become attached to the five desires and be caught in a net of assumptions and false views. If they see that the Tathagata is always alive and never extinct, they'll become arrogant and selfish, or discouraged and neglectful, unable to realize how difficult it is to meet him. They will not have a respectful attitude toward him. Right? A parent understands this. If the goal in your practice is to be Bob, and Bob's always around, and you're having difficulty, and you can't let go of your ideas of this guy affects me, she affects me, that person's in his way, if only I'd been born in different circumstances, if only, if, right? Then you're completely controlled by the samsaric conditions you live in, rather than seeing them as conditions and rising above them, outside them, whatever. And Bob's your example, either to admire and try to be more like Bob, or Bob becomes somebody you go, screw Bob. You know, if I had parents like Bob, I'd be Bob too. If I had the opportunities Bob had, I'd be Bob too. So you start resenting him, right? So what Bob does is he says, well, I'm going to die. So now, however you feel about Bob, my example, whether I dislike him or admire him, you panic a little. Where's my example? What am I going to be like? How am I going to, good, Bob won't be around, so I won't feel so inferior. Whatever, you're going to have a feeling about Bob not being around. And even if you feel that negative, you're still going to have in your negativity a kind of a longing, still, I wish I could improve my life and be like Bob was, right? So this is a device. This is a skillful means for people who don't get the teachings, who live in a life condition where they just can't release themselves from their attachments and their emotional influences and constantly blaming others for their life condition. He's going to be that other and he's going to leave. Like the parent in the parable in chapter, not 3, what chapter was it? the doctor with the sons, and they get sick, and he gives them medicine, and one of them was already too sick, so he doesn't take it, doesn't believe him, and then the dad leaves and sends word back that he's dead, and the sons mourn, and even the sons that are deluded and so forth that wouldn't take the medicine go, well, what the hell, I might as well take the medicine, and it heals them, and then they all lament. And then he shows up and he goes, I'm sorry I told you I was dead, but I knew that was the only way you'd take the medicine. Right? This is the same device, the same skillful means. Follow? Therefore, the Tathagata teaches by using skillful means, saying, monks, you should know that it is difficult to meet a Buddha who has come into the world. Why is this? In the course of countless hundreds of thousands of billions of eons, some people of little virtue may see a Buddha, while others may never see one. For this reason, I say this, monks, it is difficult to see a Tathagata. Living beings, hearing such words, surely will realize that it is difficult to meet a Buddha. They will yearn for one. Then they will cultivate roots of goodness. This is why the Tathagata announces his extinction, even though he does not in reality become extinct. The man does, but not Buddha, not gravity. Good sons, the teaching of all the Buddha Tathagatas are all like this. They are for the sake of liberating all the living. They are true and not empty. Suppose, for instance, there is a fine physician who is wise and clever and knows how to make medicines for curing all sorts of disease. Guess what chapter that story's in? He has many sons, say 10, 20, even 100. To take care of some business, he goes off to a distant land. After he leaves, his children drink some poisonous drugs which drives them into delirium of agony and leaves them writhing on the ground. At this point, their father comes back home to find the sons have drunk the poison. Some have lost their minds, others have not. Seeing their father in the distance, they are all very happy. Kneeling to greet him, they say, how good it is that you've returned safely. Foolishly, we have taken some poison by mistake. Please heal us and give us back our lives. The father sees his children in such suffering and agony, and following various formulas, looks for good medicinal herbs, perfect in color, fragrance, and flavor. Then he pounds, sifts, and mixes them, gives them to his children, telling them, this excellent medicine is perfect in color, fragrance, and flavor. Take it, and you will quickly be rid of your suffering and agony, and be free from the illness. Those children who have not lost their minds, seeing this excellent medicine of good color and fragrance, take it immediately and are completely cured of their illness. The others who have lost their minds are also happy to see their father return and ask him to heal their illness. Yet, when the medicine is given to them, they refuse to take it. Why? Because the poison has penetrated deeply into them, and they have lost their minds. Even though this medicine has good color and fragrance, they think it is no good. The father thinks to himself, these poor children, because of the poison in them, their minds are completely unbalanced. Though they are glad to see me and ask to be healed, they refuse to take this good medicine. Now I have to do something skillful means to get them to take this medicine. Then he says to them, you should know that I am now worn out with old age, and the time has come for me to die. I will leave this excellent medicine here. You should take it and not worry that it will not make you better. After instructing them in this way, he leaves again for another land, from which he sends back a messenger to inform them, your father is dead. Now, when those children hear that their father has died and left them behind, they become very distressed and think to themselves, if our father were alive today, he would have been kind to us and he would have saved us. But now he has abandoned us and died in a distant land. We think to ourselves as orphans with no one to rely on. This continuous grief brings them to their senses. They recognize that the medicine is excellent in color, fragrance, and flavor, and they take it and are fully healed of the poison. The father, hearing that the children have all recovered, returns home immediately so that they all can see him again. Good sons, what do you think? Can anyone say that this fine physician is lying? No, world-honored one. The Buddha said, I too am like this. Since I became Buddha, innumerable, unlimited, hundreds of thousands of billions of myriads of countless of eons past, for the sake of the living, I use the power of skillful means and say that I will take the way of extinction. Yet, taking the circumstances into account, no one can accuse me of being guilty of lying. And at that time, the world-honored one, wanting to restate what he had meant, spoke in verse. Since I became a Buddha, innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions of countless numbers of eons have passed. For countless eons I have taught the Dharma ceaselessly, Bodhisattva, teaching and transforming innumerable hundreds of millions of living beings, enabling them to enter the Buddha way. Not become Buddhas. Enter the Buddha way, Bodhisattva practice. In order to liberate the living, as a skillful means I appear to enter nirvana. Yet truly I am not extinct. I am always here teaching the Dharma. I am always here, but due to my divine powers, perverse living beings fail to see me, even though I am close, because Buddha is in everything. All we need to do is awaken to it. Remember awakening, enlightenment? It's about revealing, not discovering. It's about experiencing, not purchasing, not getting it from somewhere, not being given it. It's already here. Extant, to use his words. When the many see me as extinct, they make offerings to my remains everywhere. All long for me, adore and yearn for me. What does yearning do? Think about the word yearn. There's a reason they used it in this translation. What do you develop when you yearn? You develop a strong determination. The more you prove to yourself and you advance in your study, your determination turns to conviction. All of this builds what? A strong mind, a dedicated effort. The Bodhisattva way is an actualization of that determination and effort, and therefore leads, eventually, inexorably, to the Buddha way. That's the whole methodology of Buddhism. And when the living have become faithful, of strong mind and determination, what I just described, when they become this, honest and upright and gentle, and wholeheartedly want to see the Buddha, single-mindedly wanting to commune with the Buddha, even at the cost of their own lives, I mean, deeply committed. Then together with the assembly of monks, I appear on Holy Eagle Peak. Siddhartha doesn't pop up in the air. Bob doesn't suddenly show up. What shows up is the mind state, the realization, the awakening, the experience of the Buddha mind, the detached yet completely appreciative, blown away joy of what life is without the encumbrances that create any kind of suffering. Then I tell all the living that I am always here, not extinct. Yet by the power of skillful means I reveal both extinction and non-extinction. If there are living beings in other lands who are reverent and sincere in their faith, they among them as well, I will teach the unexcelled Dharma. Not hearing about this, you think only that I am extinct. When I look at living beings, I see them drowning in a sea of suffering. So I do not show myself, making them adore and yearn for me until they are full of longing. Then I appear to teach the Dharma for them. Who appears? Not who. A mind state, an experience comes from that longing and manifests into a clarity of vision. That, my friends, is the Buddha way. That is what the Bodhisattva way is, a map for how to live our lives with this yearning, longing for that mind state that is released, free of suffering. Such are my divine powers, the divine powers of this experience. Throughout countless eons, I have always lived on Holy Eagle Peak, right? Because the peak is the height of consciousness, right? And in various other places. When the living witness the end of an eon, when everything is consumed in a great fire, this land of mine remains safe and tranquil, always filled with human and heavenly beings. Always filled with human and heavenly beings. So if you're going to make the mistake of saying when everything is consumed in a great fire, like Armageddon, that's not what this means at all. What this means is that when all illusions are consumed, when all possessions, when all ideas of attachments to thingness are just burned away to ash, this land of mine remains safe and tranquil. What land is that? It's the experience landscape. It's the experience of no attachments. Always filled with human and heavenly beings. If everything was burned to the ground in the way that a Christian thinks or other religions think, there would be no human or heavenly beings. It'd just be nothing, dead. That's not what he means. What he means is when all those illusions and delusions are burned away, what you're left with is the amazingness of humans and heavenly beings. Its gardens and groves, halls and pavilions are adorned with all kinds of gems. How can you have gardens and groves if everything's burned it, right? Jeweled trees are full of flowers and fruit, and all living beings freely enjoy themselves. This can only be because what is consumed in a great fire are the delusions. Gods beat on heavenly drums, always making various kinds of music. Mandara blossoms rain down and are scattered over the Buddha and the great assembly. My pure land will never be destroyed, yet the multitude see it as being consumed in fire, everywhere filled with grief and fear and all kinds of suffering. Sinful living beings, because of the evil they have done in the past, throughout countless eons, fail to hear the names of the three treasures. But those who do good, who are gentle and honest, will all see me teaching the Dharma. You'll experience them. That's how we see, with experience. At times for this multitude I teach that the Buddha's life is immeasurable. And those who see the Buddha only after a long time I teach that it is difficult to meet the Buddha. The power of my wisdom is such that its light shines immeasurably. I gained this life of countless eons from long cultivated practice. What practice? Bodhisattva practice. You who are wise should have no doubt about this. You should reject doubt forever, for the Buddha's words are true and not false. Like the physician who uses skillful means to cure his deranged children, though actually alive, he announces his death, yet cannot be charged with lying. I am the Father of this world, healing all those who suffer or are sick. For the sake of ordinary perverse people, though truly alive, I say I am extinct. If people see me all the time, they become arrogant and selfish, indulgent in the 5 desires without restraint, and fall into evil paths. I always know which living beings practice the way and which do not. In accord with what they need to be saved, I share various teachings for them. I am always thinking, how can I lead all the living to enter the unexcelled way and quickly perfect their Buddha bodies? And quickly perfect their Buddha bodies. We chant this in Gangyo. This is I'm going to make a note of this. When we get to the end of the 16th chapter, and we say, Zuyo Shokado Ise Shujuho Maichi Sazen Igario Shujo Tokanyu Mujo Do Sokujo Jubushin. That's what we're saying. How do I bring all the living to realize their Buddha wisdom, their Buddha mind, their Buddha bodies? Bodies, the three bodies of Buddha. Why bodies? Actually, just thought of that. Right? The three bodies of Buddha, they're what? Right? They're in the mind, they're in the study, they're in the abode. Buddha is experienced in samsara, not outside of it. What you're outside of, nirvana, isn't death. Nirvana is being outside of the great world of illusions, the great fire, so that we can perceive with clarity the Buddha mind and experience the gorgeousness, the beauty, the preciousness of this process we call life. I know there's a lot in the second chapter that's critical to understanding how Buddhism was taught and how it still continues to be taught. But for me personally, the 15th and especially the 16th chapter, it just, it's just like the final word. If you don't get it now, you ain't going to get it. But that's me. That chapter will serve as a tool for all of you in a different way or the same way. I hope that my animated discussion throughout helps to convey, without mysticism, really directly what the function and the merit of this teaching is, what it points to. I know it sounds like I'm closing the book, so to speak, but I just really want to impress upon you the profundity in this chapter specifically. All of it, to be sure, but we're going to move on to chapter 17, 18. In the three divisional understanding of the sutra, from 15 to 22, some started sooner, 13 to 22, we have this really core exploration of the Bodhisattva way and the way that Buddhahood is, always has been, and can be attained as a human being, release ourselves from suffering, and elevate our understanding and meaningfulness of this life. This is, to me, this is the Mandarava flowers should be falling right now. That's not to say that the chapters afterwards are useless. There's a lot of meat in those, and we're going to go through all of them. My commitment to you was to do the Threefold Lotus Sutra. So we went through the Innumerable Sutra. We're now on, done with chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra. We're now going to move on to chapter 17, all the way to chapter 28, and then we're going to do the closing sutra. So we're going to go through the whole thing. But we've reached a real peak, a summit here. So I want to respect it and impress upon you that if you're waning or ever have doubts in your practice and you're thinking, where can I go to feel, motivated again? Read the 15th and the 16th, or just the 16th chapter. Try to remember how we discussed it so you don't get carried away by all the imagery and the hyperbole. Like, ground yourself, ground it, because it is a very grounded teaching. Look, it's 2,600 years old. You're going to have to do your own work to see clearly through it, and you will. The more you read it, the more you chant, the more you practice, the more when you go back to it and read it in other translations, but read it, it's just going to become so obvious to you. That alone will be exciting. That, believe me, it will motivate your practice as you motivate mine. So thank you once again. We'll do Daimoku Sancho and close, and I can't wait to dive into chapter 17. Okay, here we go. Nam Myo Renge Kyo Nam Myo Renge Kyo Nam Myo Renge Kyo. Thank you very much.